Welcome to Module 3. This module is designed to help you learn more about what software and hardware is out there today and how it can benefit student learning, including students with disabilities. We'll also explore the concept of digital social stories that you can use to help specific students that you might work with in your classroom. As you know, technology can open the door for many students who might otherwise have a difficult time participating in the regular classroom. Students with disabilities of all kinds benefit tremendously from assistive technologies like screen readers, magnifiers, predictive writing tools, closed captioning, augmentative communication devices, and much more. In this discussion, we'll take some time to explore assistive technology, or AT, in some depth so that you will have a better idea of what's available. You will choose from a list of scenarios involving some students with special needs and the technologies that they use, including an autistic student who uses an augmentative communication device to help her communicate better with others, a student who uses a wheelchair and speech-to-text technology with his computer, a student with a learning disability who uses word prediction software and other tools to help him write and stay focused, a student who has low vision and uses screen readers and on-screen magnification to help her use the computer, and a student who has limited hearing and uses American Sign Language as well as closed captioning when watching multimedia. With each of these scenarios, consider your student and their individual needs, and then learn about one of their technologies in order to share the information with the rest of us. What helps your student and why is it effective? How is it going to help them in the specific science lesson that students will be working on during this particular scenario? How many variations of this technology that they use now exist, and what are some of the brand names? How would this technology integrate into the rest of the class? How would other students see it and interact with it? Are there other options that the student might benefit from better to address his or her special need in this situation? And also, how would you advise other students who work with this other teachers with this student and the AT that they're using? So there's a lot of different things to consider here, and it's a really interesting discussion. So spend some time investigating the AT options that are out there and think seriously about how your student that you've selected from the list can benefit. Carol Gray developed social stories to help explain important concepts to students with autism in a way that helps them put things into perspective. Since their minds work a little differently than others, it's important to match stories with pictures and have a very patient and unassuming way of explaining. Our social stories can be about anything you wish, describing a behavior or a concept for students with autism that may be in your future classroom. It might be a story on how Billy should go safely to the playground or get on the bus, or how Sally should raise her hand when she wants to talk in class, or what autism means and how it's different for every person. Your social story will consist of some specific components. You'll have a learning objective to set the stage and tell us what you intend for students to learn and be able to do after they use the story. You'll follow the 10 social story criteria, and I'll go over those briefly on the next slide. And you'll also publish this online with using one of two tools. We'll either use the CAST UDL Book Builder, or you can choose Tar Heel Reader, both of which create accessible online storybooks with useful tools that include automatic text-to-speech. And CAST in particular has some fun tools like a cartoon coach that you can have cheering on the student from the sidelines while they're reading. Social stories follow 10 basic criteria. First is a goal to create accurate information, to share accurate information using content, format, and voice that's descriptive, meaningful, and physically, socially, and emotionally safe for the intended audience. Next, think about a two-step discovery process. We want to understand the behavior the student needs help with. We also want to applaud what the student is already doing well. Next, it has a title and 3 very distinct parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, or even simpler, a beginning, middle, and end. So each section answers specific questions. In the beginning, what do people do? In the middle, why do they do it? And in the end, what behavior is expected? Next, you think about what Carol Gray calls the format, F-O-U-R, format. The social story format is tailored to students' abilities, attention, learning style, and interests. Think about the voice and vocabulary. Social stories are patient and supportive. They speak to the student in the first or the third person. So never use you. Always use words like they or I and stick with one of those 2 points of view. And use words that are efficient, clear, and accurate so that even if taken literally, they make sense. Answer the basic questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how for the audience, even if it's information that you might otherwise assume or take for granted yourself. Use both descriptive sentences, the things that describe the observable features and the behavior, and also some coaching sentences that are guiding the behavior through descriptions of effective responses that students are supposed to give in the situations that are being described. Carol Gray also refers to what she calls the GREAT formula, which is the total number of descriptive sentences divided by a total number of coaching sentences should be greater than 2. So in other words, more descriptive sentences than coaching sentences. In other words, don't turn it into a story that just tells students how to sit in their seats properly or, do things properly. Make sure you're also spending a lot more time talking about, the classroom and how Billy is usually very good and he's doing a lot of things right. But here's this one thing that we can change, and this is how. But again, always make sure you're always using very positive language. And I'll show you some examples in a little bit of what we're talking about. Review and revise until your story matches all those social story criteria. So as you write through it, go back, look at some examples, think again about what you've written, and see what you can do to help modify that story to make it as close as possible to the criteria as it can. And then, of course, if you were in a real situation and you're really working with this student, consider your plan for implementation. How would you go about giving this to actual students? How would you introduce it? How often would they expect to read it, or you would read it to them? How would you figure out if it's working or not? So those are things to keep in the back of your mind. We're going to work on creating our story right now. So in putting it together, once you have your idea for your story, you've written it out, you might want to just write it out on Word first or something, or on a piece of paper. These aren't long, remember. These are real simple stories that you're writing. But once you have your idea, put the whole thing together in Book Builder or Tar Heel Reader. I suggest these two because they're fully accessible even to students who might be using assistive technology like a screen reader to use their computer, and because they employ text-to-speech capabilities. So both require the creation of a free account and allow you to publish your story as a web link that you can just copy and paste for others to view. You can also download the story to play offline, but for our purposes and submitting it to Blackboard, publishing it online is probably the best and the easiest thing you can do. There are tutorials available for both sites, and you'll likely find them each sufficiently pretty easy to use. CAST has a few extra features that you might not see with Tar Heel, like some animated talking characters and those kinds of things, so there's a few extra tools that it has. Tar Heel is pretty straightforward, very simple. Your online book should have at least 6 pages, so that includes a title page, where you might want to put your learning objective. That's actually a good place for that. And then a conclusion page, so that leaves you with a minimum of 4 story pages. This assumes 1 sentence and 1 picture per page. So again, these are short. You can certainly make it much longer if you wish. Remember the criteria too. The number of descriptive sentences divided by the number of coaching sentences should be greater than 2. So 3 descriptive, 1 coaching, title and conclusion might be your whole story. Maybe, depends on how you write it. If you wish to get some extra credit, you can create an additional social story. You can get up to 5 extra credit points by creating your social story, or you can write another one if you'd like in another program like Weebly, which we're actually going to look at later on in the semester. Prezi, which is a presentation builder some of you are familiar with. There might be others that are out there as well. Those are 2 choices. They might be familiar. They also allow you, for more options. They also might have some more limitations. So it's interesting to try and implement your story in a few different modes to see the difference in how it can be presented for your students. So think about which one you like better, for example. And of course, it's an extra 5 points, which is always a good thing. So on objectives, this is a quick overview, and there is more information that you can read about in Blackboard. But basically, writing objectives can be a tough part of the assignment if you've never done it before. It can also be really easy once you get the formula down. The key is to develop objectives that use real action verbs rather than kind of vague words describing behaviors that we can't really see, like understand or learn. So stay away from words like understand and learn. We don't like those words. It's better to use this ABCD format. It says audience, behavior, condition, and degree. So in one sentence, your objective should be able to include who the learners are, what they're doing, what we'll observe, and how we will know that they are successful. So to be grammatically correct, it's actually usually written with the condition first. So an example is during the assignment, college students will use a wiki to arrange content around a specific topic, providing at least 3 hyperlinks to additional information. So here, during the module or during the assignment is the condition here, right? And college students is the audience. The behavior that they're demonstrating is using a wiki to arrange content around a specific topic. And then the degree to which we know that they're successful is that they're going to provide at least 3 hyperlinks to additional information there. So that is just one example. You could certainly come up with lots of others, but that's sort of how it plugs together. And really, at its core, it's pretty easy. I'm a big fan of this formula. I think it's really easy to use and follow. So hopefully you'll get a little bit of practice and find it to be easy to use as well. There are lots of resources in this module that can guide you. This is, again, it's kind of another fun set of assignments, something to really give you something to think about, expand your horizons a little, get you to know what's available to your students, and to help all of them, including those with disabilities, learn at their very best. So let's take a look at Blackboard for a moment and a couple of examples. So here we are in Module 3, and you can see here are our 2 items, in addition to all the readings and materials items that are available to learn more about, especially about AT. This is probably not a subject that you're super familiar with, so there's a lot of information here to help you along the way, a lot of great videos, a lot of websites with a lot of resources. And so your discussion will include the assistive technology discussion. Students are, in this scenario, students are engaging in a science project. They're doing a science experiment with what's called a Cartesian diver. It's this little thing that, if you're not familiar with it, it's a little guy that you can use to help test principles of buoyancy. And so students will be hands-on. They're using wood and aluminum foil and plastic and a bunch of things to measure the buoyancy of different materials in water. So that's kind of what you're doing in your classroom, and now you're going to think about your students, and you have 5 students that you can choose from. You only need to concentrate on one, Angela, Jimmy, Reginald, Lupita, and Austin, and they each have their own unique abilities and needs, and so you can read about them And then think about how them and their technologies are going to work within this science lesson that you're working on. Including what is the technology that they're using. If you've never heard of, say, speech to text before, or Dragon Naturally Speaking as an example, that's a particular software item, then you can investigate, okay, what does Jimmy have available to him and what other tools are like it? He uses tablets because he likes working with touchscreen. Are there tablet options available to him that are better than just your standard iPad? Or what is it on the iPad that can be used to help students with special needs, or anybody with special needs, work with the iPad more effectively? There's actually a lot of really neat information out there. So as you investigate, you're going to start figuring out what is the technology about, what options are available, are there different ones out there that might be better than, or different at least than what the students are using now. How can we make sure that the students incorporated well into the classroom and into the work with the rest of the class? So, how does the AT potentially impact the rest of the class, and how will you work with the rest of the class to make sure that they accept and understand what the student with special needs is going through? You might even have some opinions after you've done some research about whether the technology that they're using is a good choice for your student. You may have other ideas. What are there better options out there for them? What would work better, especially with this hands-on science lesson? Might not even always be a technology. It might be just a different way to accommodate them. Having a note taker. There's lots of ways to assist a student who might need special needs, and every student is unique. So sometimes what works well for one student will work totally differently for someone with the same category of disability. So those are all things to think about. And so we're going to explore AT in some depth in this discussion, and hopefully everyone will come up with some different ideas and things they can share so that we'll have a real vibrant conversation about all the different options that are out there for all of these different students. So that's our goal. We're going to write probably 2 to 3 paragraphs, maybe more, to give all kinds of information and, of course, round it out with some advice. If you were working with a teacher who's working with this student, now that you know a little bit about it, how would you make sure that teacher accommodates that student well? So those are our goals for the discussion. And then we'll move to the social story. And you'll see that there's a lot of the information that I already spoke to you about is here, written out for you, including all the information about writing objectives with some more examples, so that, if you need some more information about that, there's some examples there for you. The 10 criteria. I've also linked to a few different places. Carol Gray's website, she's got some great videos and things. There's also a slideshow here that's really helpful for understanding the social story concept. And then information about putting it all together online, including some examples. So sometimes it's easier to just show than tell. So Rebecca was a student of mine last summer, and so I'm going to bring up her social story that she made. Rebecca's actually was a graduate student, and she is actually currently teaching special ed in Lowell. So she has kind of a longer story. Hers is you can see it's 15 pages, so yours is only required to be 6. It's called Archie Goes to Lunch. Hers does not feature a specifically written out learning objective because that was not part of the assignment that she did, but she might have something along the lines of, because this is a story about how Archie properly goes to lunch and eats calmly and quietly and those kinds of things. And so in that an objective might be something along the lines of, while at lunch, Archie will will sit in his seat quietly and eat his lunch and go to lunch on time, and all kinds of things. You could actually write several objectives related to this one because it is a little longer. But you'll see that she actually has a few sentences sometimes, but usually just one picture on each slide. And so this is cast, by the way. She's done this in the book builder cast. So Archie goes to lunch. It's his favorite time of day. I won't read the whole thing to you, but you can see kind of how it goes. She's got lots of vibrant pictures, pictures of children, actual children. A lot of autistic students like to see themselves in their social stories, or at least maybe people that they know or other kids that are like them. So if you think of it, you might want to find pictures of kids, kids that are maybe in the grade level that you're aiming for. So you can see how this is sort of written. It's showing that it's showing Archie doing the behaviors that we want to see in him. Archie walks through the class with his class in the hallway. He's walking with his class. He's quiet so he doesn't bother other classes who are still learning. So it's not saying Archie shouldn't do these things. It's saying Archie does do these positive behaviors. So you can see how the language is a little different from, basically just telling Archie how to behave. Archie gets in line. Sometimes the line is long, etc., etc. So as you can see how this goes. She's written obviously a little bit more than some of you will, and that's okay. But she's focusing on kind of a complex task because there's a lot going on. There's a lot to know about doing lunch well, right? If you've never taken a child to lunch before in a group of other children, this will kind of inform you of how that works. There's a lot that can go wrong. So, Archie needs to know that, these are the things that he likes to do. And, he needs to remember to listen when it's his turn. He can't yell and push in line and those kinds of things. So this is another example. This is also listed in your course from Taylor, and this one is done in Tar Heel Reader, so you can kind of see the difference. The interface is a little different, and the social story itself is a little different too. Instead of just teaching a student how to do something or how to do a behavior well. It's more of an inspirational kind of story. So it's about Super E and he finds his cape. Super E who's missing his cape, and it's more about it's a lesson about spelling. And so Super E has the E. He wants his cape, so he found a cap. Right? He can turn it into a cape. So you can kind of see where this one's going. It's very cute, and it keeps going a little bit. And there's some fun word play that she's done here. It's actually really cute. You'll probably get a kick out of it as you go through it. Super E finally does find his cape at the end, of course, and you will be able to she actually took the photographs and actually did all this, which is certainly another way to do it. You could just take the photographs and do all that. But you can see kind of the difference between Tar Heel and Cast. This one is very simple. You've got your open menu off to the upper left, and that's where you can write your own book and log in and those kinds of things. You can also look at other books that are out there. They're not all just social stories that's out there in the galleries, and that's true for Cast as well. They each have a little gallery of places where people are publishing things, and you can look at what's out there. They won't all necessarily be great examples for you as far as this assignment goes, but they still might be interesting just on their own merits. Now, with Tar Heel, the registration process is a little different than what you might be used to. They have tried to protect folks from getting spammers, basically. So you can go to register, but you'll need what they ask for, a registration code. Now, if I go back, note that there is a help, and you can go to the help, and there's a frequently asked questions page, which is also going to be in your listed in your course on the social story assignment page. If you'd like to register for this, you have to email them, and they'll get back to you pretty quickly, but you have to email them and ask them for a code so that you can register yourself. So it's a little bit of an extra step in the process. It might slow you down a little bit, so if you intend to use this one, you might not want to wait until Sunday night to start working on it, just so you know. So just keep in mind that that's out there. And then once you're in, you find it's incredibly easy to use as a tool. It's very, very simple to use, and it's actually kind of fun. Oops. Now, as far as CAST goes, there's maybe a few extra steps as far as how to use the tool. Logging in is easy. You can set yourself up for bookbuilder.cast.org. And then go ahead and create your account if you don't already have one. I already do, so I'm going to go ahead and add my information. So once you're logged in, you'll be able to check out what's available. They do have, just like Tar Heel, they do have a series of model books that you can read through. Again, they won't all be social stories, but there might be some interesting stuff in there that's other teachers are posting things that they're creating. And then, of course, you can create and edit your own things. So I'll create and edit some things. Something just to show you. Actually, I'll edit a test that I was creating to show you. And of course, if you have lots of them, you may need to filter them. Of course, you're only going to have the one probably for now, so you can just create that one when you're ready. So by starting a new book, I'm going to edit my existing one. And you can see, again, it's pretty simple. You're going to edit the book information to give your name and things like that. And then you can start adding and editing your text. In each one of these blocks, you hit the button so that you can, you know, add things, say whatever you want. You do have control over font sizes and colors and things like that. And then you can add pictures at any stage as well. So then you can upload your own pictures. Do be sure that, you know, whatever picture you do add, use that alt text feature to tell us what the picture is in text. That's a really good practice for any time that you're working with someone who might be using a screen reader. Then, of course, pictures are really hard to read for a screen reader, but if you give it some text that describes what the picture is, then when it's reading it to a user, then it would just read the image and say, image, picture of a cat, or whatever it is, whatever you say here. So if you upload a picture of a cat, you would literally say this is a picture of a cat in the alt text, so that students would, or anybody who's using this would be able to still know what the picture is, even if they can't see the picture. So you can add audio as well. You can add, here's the little coaches. You can add these little guys in there, and you can tell them to say anything in particular if you want to give them some supportive text to say. They'll read whatever you type in a fun voice. And then you can keep adding pages. So this is all one page that I'm working on here. And so then I can add another page and I get the same thing, the same set out of content abilities to add here. So it's a content page, so I might just select that, and that'll give me a picture and text option. Same options as before. So then you basically just keep navigating through your page, and you can modify this at any point as much as you want to. And once you have all your information ready to go, you've edited your book information, you've got your 6+ pages, you're all finished, ready to go, hit book completed, and it'll, you know, ask you to double check. Go ahead and double check things, and then hit save. and then you're going to see that your book is ready to be able to be downloaded, or it can actually be shared or published. You have a choice here. You can go ahead and just download it, and it'll download a little package that you can upload. Um, it's just going to be a little zip file that you can then upload into Blackboard, so that's an option. Or if you want, you can also publish it into the library. My book is just a test book, so I'm not going to do that, but you can just publish it to the library. You can also remove it at any time too, but once you publish it, you'll have a link, a direct link access to it, and so then you can just send the link to me. Either way is perfectly acceptable. Because when we're using Blackboard, we do need to have something to submit. It's fine to just go ahead and hit share and send it to me in an email. I'll get it, but you still need to send me some kind of a submission. It can be a blank submission in Blackboard, but I've got to have something sent from the assignment screen in Blackboard. So even if it's, I sent you an email with the shared book, that's okay. But I do need a submission of some kind. So even if you use that option, still go back to Blackboard and submit. All those ways are totally fine. So you can see that there's a new tool that you're going to be learning, or one or two tools that you'll be learning. They're both are fairly easy to get along with. It's just about which one you might like better. So try them both out. I would recommend try them both out. Give it a shot, see which one you prefer, and mess with it. And of course, the story itself can be whatever fun thing that you can come up with. It might be something based on real life situation of a student, or maybe a brother, sister, family member that you know. Someone that student in your church, child in your church, or another club, if you work at the Y or Boys and Girls Club or anything like that. All those places can be great inspiration for your social story. So if you're coming up with ideas and having a hard time, think about what's going on around you. Even in line at the grocery store, when you're sitting in line in the grocery store and you see maybe a child acting out a little bit, you might be able to come up with a cute little social story that could possibly help that child behave a little differently. So there's lots of things you can do here. This is a fun way to experiment, have a little fun, and if you happen to like creative writing, this is going to be a great opportunity for you. So hopefully you enjoyed this assignment.